Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The Browning High Power is one of the most legendary pistols of all time. This pioneered the Browning linkless action that is found pretty much in all the major pistols today, including all the various Glock variants. This also features one element that, we wouldn't have the modern day pistol scene without it. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is a double stack magazine. This pistol right here is the product of two different designers. We have the legendary, the man, the myth, the John Moses Browning, who created the action, and we have Dudon Saeed, the creator of the FNFAL, and he created this, the double stack pistol mag, which he created in the 1920s. The pistol itself would begin manufacture in the 1930s. This was Browning's last design. Now, Dudon would actually take over work on this pistol after Browning died in the 1920s. The story goes that Browning actually died working on this thing. How true that is, I couldn't really tell you. Now, the original Browning design was a little different from what we have today, and that's primarily because Dudon would use some of the expired 1911 patents to make what we have here. Originally, according to my research, and I could be wrong, Browning's design didn't even have an exposed hammer. It was completely hammerless, which is rather interesting and rather forward-thinking. Now, I happen to be very fond of what Dudon did to this pistol to make it what it is today. So what it is today, ladies and gentlemen, well, this is a steel-framed 9mm parabellum pistol feeding from double-stack mags. The original mags, and the mag we have here, it was 13 rounds, which might seem a bit minuscule by today's standards of 18 and 20 round mags, but 13 in the middle of the 1930s was absolutely unheard of. And the reason why it was called the high power was because you had the high power of 13 rounds. And one must also remember that in the 1930s, you had pistols still being fielded that were in 32 ACP, so 9mm was pretty bloody big compared to that. Although, of course, not as big as 45 ACP. This is very different from a modern pistol in that this is a single action pistol, meaning you have to cock the hammer before you can fire. One of the minor issues with the Browning High Power was the safety. And what we have on here is an aftermarket safety added by the previous owner. The original high power safety was a really weird kind of oval, oblong kind of thing that, well, let's just say I'm glad I got this one. Now, so there have been some complaints about the trigger, and the reason why there were some trigger issues is because, well, I'm pushing on the magazine drop button, and unfortunately, the mags do not drop free. And that's because there's a mag drop safety on here. Now, there have been various justifications for a mag drop safety, but to be perfectly honest, I find them really, really annoying, as you can see. And this is not as easy to disable as on the Star BM. In order to disable this thing, you have to really fiddle with a lot of parts. And I believe the previous owner did attempt to actually remove it, but it must not have been successful because it's still there, but the pin that holds in the mag drop safety clearly has been pushed out at some point. Now, what I hold here is not an original FN high power. This is an Argentinian high power. The high power was so popular that many countries would license the pistol design and would have tooling licensed from FN. And then FN inspectors would come and ensure that the pistols were made to the proper grade. And so Argentina licensed the design and had FN inspectors inspect these pistols to make sure they were in spec. And so what we have here is an Argentinian manufactured high power that is not a clone, it's not a derivative, it's not a variant, it is a 100% high power pistol just manufactured in Argentina. Made to the same specs as the original, and that is pretty bloody cool. Now what we have here is one that I picked up at a local gun shop. What's interesting about this is this pistol here was customized and slicked up by the previous owner to be a high-quality concealed carry handgun. The original kind of crap safety has been changed with a very nice thumb safety. It's very easy to toggle it on and off. There has been some trigger work done to this pistol, but the mag drop safety has not been removed for whatever reason. But the trigger is still really absolutely exceptional. The overall fit and finish of this gun is nothing short of amazing as well. At some point, this pistol has been refinished, as the original Argentinian high power finish would have been just basic phosphating. This is a very nice deep bluing, and while it does show some holster wear, it has definitely held up quite well throughout the years. Now, we also have some custom grips, which are nothing short of amazing as well. Now, what we have here is a firearm that is absolutely excellent in terms of ergonomics. When you hold this pistol, it practically molds itself to your hand. And I think that's one of the other reasons why this pistol has proven to be so popular throughout the years. It's not just a forward-thinking design, it's not just highly accurate and reliable, but it's easy for you to get a good grip and get good shots off. The sights are basic military sights, but I happen to like these versus the 3-dot sights. Now, you can get different magazines for this pistol. Now, I would highly recommend sticking with the mech gars. This is a 13-round mech gar, and this shiny boy right here is a 15-round mech gar. This is just as reliable as the 13-rounder, but gives you a more modern capacity of 15. Now, why did I go with nickel? Well, it's not because I'm Southern and like the Chinese, but because that's all I could find, and hey, you got a little two-tone with your dudone. That was just painful. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this pistol is one of those things that was well earned the hype that it gets. It's kind of an underground pistol in some respects, just because it's not constantly in the popular consciousness. It's certainly not as much in the popular consciousness as the 1911, but it has seen some exposure in video games. Most notably, this was Benny's pistol in Fallout New Vegas, although unfortunately, the damage rating on this pistol was so bad in Fallout New Vegas that I never used the bloody thing. Now, in real life, its damage rating is substantially better. Now, today, we're going to be taking this to the pistol range, and we're going to be shooting it at different ranges. We're going to be shooting it at 7 yards and 15 yards. And we're going to be using a variety of ammunition ranging from PMC to Gecko to S&B. And I'm only going to be shooting about 80 rounds due to the rather limited state of ammunition today. So with that, let's head out to the range and see just what we can do with it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when it came to hitting the targets, the game was rigged from the start. This thing is nothing short of a laser gun. You put the sights on the target, and you hit every time. I did shoot a little high, but with practice I can dial that down a bit. And I get the feeling that this has been sighted for something a bit longer than 15 yards. But that was the range I had access to that day, and so I used it. I was really quite pleased to see that my grandmother shot this quite well. As you can see, there is a lot of recoil mitigation when it comes to weight. Yeah, this thing's a lot heavier than, say, your typical Glock 19, but that translates into better control under recoil. And that's a trade-off. I'm willing to pay the weight penalty, but then again, I guess I can because, well, I lift, bro. These sights, while fairly basic, do lend themselves well to accuracy. My grandfather also enjoyed this pistol quite a bit as well, as you can see from his target.
Now you also saw that my mother shot this pistol as well, but that actually comes from a different range strip. The first range strip with this pistol turned out pretty bloody good. The pistol performed flawlessly, but unfortunately the footage did not turn out all that well. I had my mother try to do some filming. Unfortunately she was too short to actually show me and the gun in the same frame, so I had to throw out all that footage. And I thought I had to throw out her footage as well, but I was actually able to use it because it was taken from a different angle, and thus you could actually see her and the firearm. Now, on that particular range trip, I was able to get some really good hits for the very first time out at 7 yards. I didn't try it any further away because the lane broke for whatever reason. She was able to do quite well that day as well. Unfortunately, I do not have that target, so you can see the accuracy for yourself, but rest assured, both she and I were very good with that pistol on the first time out. One thing that's actually pretty interesting about the high power is that you can get good hits with very minimal practice with that bloody thing. It is just that well designed.
Now, I remember a passage from one of the Monster Hunter books by Larry Correia. Essentially, there's a bad guy monster team that Monster Hunter International has to do battle with in one of the novels. And Monster Hunter International, kicks the crap out of them, but doesn't, kill them because they're still human. And it was one of those things where you beat up the rival team and tie them up. Well, they have to team up again towards the end of the novel. And the main character of the Monster Hunter series, Pitt, steals one of the bad guy monster team's pistols, which happens to be a Browning high power. And there's a line in there that always sticks with me. Pitt gives the guy back his high power, and he's like, "Did the bad man hurt you?" It's like, yeah, if someone took my high power, I'd say the same thing. Incidentally, in the sequel to that book, the guy who got his high power taken from him actually sues Monster Hunter International. I can see why. If you were just going to get one classic pistol, I would actually recommend this over just about any of the others. The high power really was the legendary pistol, not only of its day, but today. It is very much a unique firearm. Single action design really does lend itself well to accuracy, and if you were to get a upgraded safety, this would definitely be fairly competitive. It's easy to say that, oh, you'll forget to drop the safety if you're using this in competition and you're stressed out. But this, I think, is actually better placed than even a 1911's thumb safety, because, as you can see, when I was doing some stress fire, I was able to easily depress that every bloody time. Now, I also did fumble with this pistol a little bit after I got it out of the holster, but thanks to the aggressive texturing on these grips, I was able to get it back under control. That's why you have aggressive texturing on your pistol. In the past, I was like, oh, why would you need that? I'm not dropping it. But your hands get sweaty, or you just, fumble it. This will save your proverbial ass. I could gush about this for hours. This is like the M1 Garand to me. This is like the PTR 91 to me. This is a legend that I've wanted to shoot for decades, and it more than lived up to the hype. And I cannot recommend seeking one of these out enough. And so, I am General Lotz, wishing you good, John Moses Browning, and good Dudon Saiv, whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.